Good evening. My name is Jill Cohen. I am a member of the League of Women Voters of Washtenaw County. Welcome to our online forum featuring candidates from Ann Arbor City Council, Ward 1. These candidates will be on the ballot in the primary on Tuesday, August 2nd. The League of Women Voters works to expand voter rights and educate voters. We are a nonpartisan organization and neither endorse nor oppose candidates or political parties. The League is providing this forum as an opportunity for candidates to express their views related to their candidacy. The League does not certify any candidate responses to questions as accurate. Voters are encouraged to fact-check information shared at the forum. We bring you tonight's forum because we believe that respectful sharing of views on community issues is vital to the functioning of American democracy. Our moderator this evening is Joan Sempiri, who will explain the format and get us started.
Very much, Ms. Cohen. And thank you, candidates, for participating in this forum. It's my honor to introduce the candidates running for the Democratic primary in the Ann Arbor City Council, Ward 1, Cynthia Harrison and Angeline Smith. Thank you for participating. The forum will follow this format. Each candidate will have an opening statement of up to 1 minute. Each will have a closing statement of up to 90 seconds. In between, I will ask questions that came in from the community. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to those questions. At appropriate times, the timer will raise a sign on her screen indicating the time remaining. 30 seconds, and then stop. If you've used your time, you will be allowed to finish the sentence, and then your microphone will be muted so that the other candidate has an equal opportunity to participate. The candidates will begin speaking in alphabetical order by last name. Each of you will have an opportunity to be the first or the last to answer questions. We're now ready for your opening statement, Ms. Harrison.
Hello, I'm Cynthia Harrison, a lifelong resident of Ann Arbor. I'm grateful for this opportunity to introduce myself on this historic day where Ketanji Brown Jackson was sworn in as Supreme Court Justice, making history as the first Black woman justice. Justice Jackson will represent Black women and all Americans, just as I will do for all residents of Ward 1 on Ann Arbor City Council. I'm a Democrat running for City Council in Ward 1. I grew up a proud daughter of a UAW auto professional and the first Black nurse to work for Ann Arbor Public School System. My parents instilled in me the value of hard work from a young age. And from a young age, I understood the importance of giving back to this beautiful community. I know the city inside out and I love it. And as I've watched friends and family be forced to move because it has become increasingly unaffordable, I know that it is really important that when we look at our policies and practices, we think about equality and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Smith, may we have your opening statement?
Sure. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to address you today. My name is Angeline Smith, and I am running for Ann Arbor City Council because I would like the city of Ann Arbor to be the liberal town that it is always claimed to be. I'm running for Ann Arbor City Council because I would like to experience the liberal values of diversity, equity, and inclusion that the Democratic Party is known for. I'm running for Ann Arbor City Council because I would like to influence the use of metrics as decisions are made on your behalf by our government. And I look forward to telling you more about how I can do that as the forum continues.
Thank you. And now to the questions. I'll read the question just once, and it won't be repeated unless that's requested. So beginning with Ms. Smith, would you identify the top 3 concerns that residents of Ann Arbor Ward 1 have expressed to you? If you're elected, would you describe the steps that you will take to address one of those issues?
Sure, thank you. The top concern that Ward 1 voters have expressed to me is the increasing cost of living here in Ann Arbor and in the ward in particular. The other is the vitriol that is occurring at the council table. And finally, the other is the lack of the city council to demonstrate the way that they're going to implement what they promise to implement. I'll take the latter, the implementation of policies. As an accountant and as a small business consultant, helping nonprofits manage their operations and reach their goals, I think I can help by influencing the use of metrics as we look at how the goals that we're trying to attain are being implemented. Further, I understand that the implementation phase takes place with the staff. However, when there is a decision to be made at the table, at the policy making point, there is the perspective of how the projects will be implemented that we can consider as we make our decisions. And that's how I can help influence the use of metrics so that the public can actually see and there is some accountability that we are doing what we say we can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Smith. Ms. Harrison.
All right, so as I'm out in the ward and talking with residents and voters, the top 3 concerns that I'm hearing about are, as Ms. Smith stated, increasing unaffordability here in the city of Ann Arbor, Ward 1, as in Ward 1 as well. I'm hearing also about basic city services. Those are top of mind for me as it pertains to the concern of residents, and concerns about increased traffic along Pontiac Trail as well as the Barton exit. So I am going to choose basic city services. Those are top of mind for me right now as we look at budgets and, we look at I can't actually, we'll tie it into the traffic concern. When it comes to basic city services, I think about multimodal means of transportation, walking, biking, the ability to be able to do that safely, to get to the parks that we enjoy so much, to get to our downtown area. I think it's really important that we think about the infrastructure, and I'm going to rope in affordable housing to that as well. I think that when we're talking about further development, it's important to think of transit corridor zoning so that we can have less vehicles on the road and more safety along those using multiple means of transportation, like walking and biking and things. So basic city services. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll come back to you, Ms. Harrison, with the next question. You've both mentioned affordable housing and home prices. Ann Arbor's home prices continue to increase, with the median price of a home now over $430,000, according to reporting from MLive. What are the respective roles of city government and private market forces in addressing the shortage of housing, especially affordable units? And do you think that the new accessory dwelling unit standards will help with that?
Thank you for the question. I think that the housing issue is important for us to address. I spoke with someone yesterday that is considering leaving town because her home is paid off, but she's increasingly unable to afford the taxes that are increasing. So I think that it's really important for us to be looking at ways that we can increase affordable housing within Ann Arbor. I believe that we need to address the zoning laws. And when you reference accessory dwelling units, that can be a way to address the zoning laws in this town. And we need to upzone so that we build buildings and allow multiple families to live under one roof. I think also we need to increase market housing, housing at a market rate, as well as workforce housing. Because we have too many people driving into this town to work, and it's a real issue. I think if we have more housing in general that pay into the taxes, that will help with affordability. And we also need to be really looking at how we can increase the percentages of affordable housing within the development that we have coming up. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Smith.
I believe the role of government and the private market should work hand in hand. As someone who has strong democratic values, I do believe that the role of government has a strong role to play in influencing the market as they can in an equitable fashion. So, for example, if we have what we have right now with the average housing cost in Ann Arbor being so high, and we are inviting developers who have the right to come into our city and build, I believe government has the ability and, in my opinion, the obligation to be sure that as the developers are getting the permits to build what they'd like to build and fill the demand for housing that our city has, that the government, the city council, has an obligation to negotiate in a fair way, but also in a manner that is in the best interest of the residents of the city. And one of the ways that that can be done is by incentivizing the developers to build affordable housing and actually to build sustainable housing. And as far as the ADUs, I believe that what I'm hearing with regard to affordable housing is not enough. What I'm understanding that our city is endeavoring to do is build housing that has to do with government subsidies. However, there are working class people who do not qualify for those. And I'm a proponent of building cooperatives where people can come together and form a corporation and get financing together and keep that equity within the corporations so that the cost to live would be much lower. Thank you.
And thank you. Ms. Smith, we'll come back to you for this next question. What is your position on the city's environmental initiatives, such as the Climate Action Plan, known as A20, and sustainable electric utilities? What can the city do to achieve the goal of reducing miles traveled by 50% by the year 2030, for example?
I think I heard the question. It kind of garbled in the middle of it when you got to the miles traveled part. If you could repeat, maybe start the timer for me after you repeat the question. Sure. That would be very helpful.
What can the city do to achieve the goal of reducing miles traveled by 50% by the year 2030 as part of the A20?
Okay, I think I got it. So you read the last part of it. Okay, so the first part that comes to mind, and it has to do with what I spoke about in the introduction. So this is an opportunity to give you an example of what I mean by using metrics to measure productivity and actually achieving the goals that we set out to. So if there are metrics in place or key performance indicators in place that go along with the plan to get to carbon neutrality by 2030, as the A20 plan endeavors to do, as we go along that path, let's say we're 2 years in, are we able to actually in some way that we can quantify or even qualify how far along that we are? And if we're not, we would get the opportunity to course correct so that we can ensure that we reach that goal. In terms of the miles traveled being reduced, I think that goes back to the affordable housing and the development. And as my opponent mentioned, the transit corridor, building along a transit corridor is a fantastic way to do that because you're looking at building smaller walkable communities so that vehicles don't have to be used as people walk around and bike around their communities to get things done. And so I think that would be a feasible way to reduce those miles traveled. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Would you
And
mind,
Ms.
is it okay for you to repeat that question? Would you
Sure.
mind?
That was rather a long and involved one. What is your position on the city's environmental initiatives, such as the Climate Action Plan, known as A20, and sustainable electric utilities? For example, what can the city do to achieve the goal of reducing miles traveled by 50% by the year 2030?
All right. Thank you for that question. I believe that in order to reach our A20 goals by 2030, I think that it's, really, and actually my mind goes right to transit corridor zoning. First off, because like I mentioned earlier, we have 84,000 vehicles driving into, commuting into the city daily. And I really believe that if more individuals or service professionals or teachers, those, city employees, everybody who is driving in to work here, if they're able to live here and also maybe possibly live here without having to drive a vehicle, that is the number one way to cut down on miles driven and emissions from single occupancy vehicles driving into the town daily, in and out. So transit corridor zoning is my first answer to that. But then secondly, I believe that, and we're speaking of with Ward 1 in particular, if we could get to a 20-minute city where we can, or ward rather, or city where we can live close enough to, say, walk to the grocery store to get a bag of groceries, maybe possibly bike to the store. I think Ward 1 is, out of the 5 wards, I believe we are in the least. I think we're doing the worst with that. It takes much longer to get to. You cannot walk in 20 minutes to a grocery store. So I believe creating multi-use housing will help with that. Thank you.
Thank you. The Ann Arbor City Council has a reputation for contentious meetings and exchanges. Is this reputation deserved? If elected, how do you plan to work together with fellow council members to best serve the city's residents? And Ms. Harrison, we'll start again with you.
First question was, is that reputation deserved? I would say yes, we see it, we've seen it as we watch our city council meetings. I personally, think it's a necessary and it's a distraction from achieving the goals that we need to achieve for the city, for voters, and for our, in particular, our Ward 1 residents. I think that, you know, you need to be able to reach across, I want to say the aisle, but in our case, we're all Democrats, but we all do have, some of us have different goals in mind. And I think it's important to be able to work with your fellow city council member in order to achieve what we're trying to achieve for the city. I think it's, like I mentioned earlier, a distraction, and really a lot of it, I think, is performative. I'm pretty sure people don't, I like watching the city council meetings. I'm pretty sure people don't want to spend hours watching a city council meeting. So, I'm in my career, I'm used to working with individuals that maybe don't see eye to eye with me. But it doesn't preclude the fact that we still have a goal, and that we still, there's an end goal, and that we need to meet that. So it's very important that we work together and we get rid of that bad reputation that city council has. Thank you.
And thank you. So Ms. Smith, if you would answer that question. And this, by the way, is our last question.
Very good, thank you. I absolutely do believe that there's too much vitriol and contention with Ann Arbor City Council. I don't think there's anything else to be said. It's quite obvious, and I do agree with that. And one of the ways that I think, that I think we can combat this is the way that I would intend to govern if I were so fortunate to be chosen as the next Ward 1 City Council person. And that is to use the skills that I have as someone who has engaged organizations that have the same mission in strategic planning, is to remind myself and my fellow council members that our focus should be on objectives and not personalities. And particularly in a liberal town like this, and I don't want to broad brush anybody, but for the most part, we do want the same thing. I think it gets down to how we do it and maybe how we prioritize it. And so I think if we focus on objectives and try to find common ground on the objectives and how to get to them, a lot of the other distractions and personality, and quite frankly, some outside influences that undoubtedly get consideration as decisions are made, we would be fine just focusing on those objectives. The second thing that I'd say is, if we all agree to govern from the perspective of citizen engagement and govern from what I'm calling the bottom up, where we're actually considering what we've heard and what we know the residents want and need. And so in order to do that, and not in any kind of vacuum, I know that we have different wards, but in order to do that, I think it takes continuous citizen engagement to do that, because then we each will be held accountable on a regular basis and not just at the polls when it comes to the respect that the citizens have for us. Thank you.
Thank you. And now it's time for closing statements. We'll begin with Ms. Harrison.
Oh, I go first again. Okay. All right. Well, I just first of all, I want to say thank you.
I'm sorry, Ms. Harrison, my mistake. I'm showing that you should go first this time, but Ms. Smith should go first for closing because you opened. Yes? Okay.
Correct.
My instructions here are not correct. So I apologize for interrupting you, but we're going to let Ms. Smith speak.
Very good, thank you. As I mentioned during my opening, I have some visions, or a vision for our city, and it has to do with living up to those values that we have all touted and have been proud of having and that we hold dear. I don't doubt that that is the truth. I'm not questioning anyone's integrity with regard to that, but I think that we have a responsibility to ensure that what the residents want and expect based on the goals that we put out will come to fruition. And so in making sure that that happens, I'll go back to the efforts that I mentioned with regard to metrics. I'm a measurer. What can I say? I'm a numbers person. And I believe that there is always a way when there's a goal to be set that you can identify how you're going to meet that goal. And to the extent that we engage the residents in that would be wonderful. I am an accountant. I have a bachelor's degree from Wayne State University, a master's degree from Central Michigan University in public administration, and my accounting degree is is the bachelor's. I run a small nonprofit or small business serving nonprofit organizations, and I've worked in this arena even with clients that were governmental agencies, and I think I can help do what I see as the vision for the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Ms. Harrison, it's your turn. Thank you for calling to my attention that you went first the last time.
It's fine, no problem. Well, I just wanted to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this forum for Ward 1 and for myself and Ms. Smith. Basically, like I said, I love the city. I'm a lifelong resident. I love the city inside out. It has been hurtful to see peers, friends, family members not be able to afford to live here and be what I would consider pushed out. And I do believe that this is as a result of policies and practices that don't support equity and inclusion. So as a mother of two sons, I know what it can look like when individuals who may struggle and who need a little bit more help, what can happen. And so I'm here to support the most vulnerable, as well as everybody in Ward 1. I think that we should work together. We all love this town. That's what we all have in common. From our basic services to our neighborhoods that we live in. And it really just is important that our communities, that we understand that they're the healthiest when all of our basic needs are met. And that includes our mental, environmental, economic health. And so I'm deeply committed to Ward 1 residents. And just thank you for the opportunity, and look forward to working very hard for you. And if I do, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to both of you for participating in this valuable session. We're now going to turn it back to Jill Cohen, who will provide closing comments.
The League thanks the candidates for participating in tonight's forum, and also thank those who contributed questions. All of our candidate forums are available for streaming from our website, lwvwashtenaw.org. The forums can also be viewed on Ann Arbor's cable television news. Please urge others to watch these forums and share the links with them. For additional nonpartisan information on candidates and ballot issues, go to vote411.org, the League's voter resource guide covering local, state, and federal candidates and current ballot proposals. As a reminder, all voters are now eligible to cast an absentee ballot, and Michigan law provides for Election Day registration. Whether by absentee ballot or in person, please vote in the August 2nd primary election. Thank you and have a good evening.